Good day. I'm Dr. Gray. I wanted to talk to you about experiment number 8, the experiment that you're going to be doing in the lab this week. This is entitled Neutrally Hot. What we are doing in this experiment is we are looking at the reaction between sodium hydroxide and HCl. We are looking at this reaction in a couple of different ways. This experiment can be broken down or distilled, down to 3 different parts. Well, in our procedure, part 1, part 2, and part 3. Now, part 1, what we are doing is we are getting solid sodium hydroxide pellets, 2 grams of them, and we're dissolving that in 50 milliliters of deionized water. So what we are going to do is we are going to observe the temperature change of that water, the initial temperature of that water, and then how much does that water change in temperature as, well, that sodium hydroxide goes into solution. Now, that will take the better part of 5 to 7 minutes. What you're going to have to do is use your thermometer to stir around that solid sodium hydroxide to make sure that it fully dissolves. Okay, part 2 of this procedure is the heat of neutralization. We are going to react an aqueous solution of sodium hydroxide with an aqueous solution of HCl. Those 2 solutions are going to interact. Sodium hydroxide, HCl, you're going to produce water, a liquid, and NaCl, an aqueous salt. So what we're going to be doing there is asking the question, when you mix sodium hydroxide and HCl, both aqueous solutions, how does the temperature of those solutions change in combination? So again, you're going to be using your thermometer to mix those 2 solutions up and ensure that they mix, and you're going to observe that temperature from its initial to its final, and then it's going to drop back down. Again, about 5 to 7 minutes. Part 3 of this procedure, you are again going to use solid sodium hydroxide, just like in part 1, but rather than adding water to watch that sodium hydroxide dissolve, you are going to be adding an HCl solution. So essentially, in part 3 of this procedure, you're doing parts 1 and part 2 combined. So you are going to have that solid sodium hydroxide go into solution, but the solution is different. So we're going to be observing the heat that's evolved there, but also we're going to be watching that HCl be neutralized by that sodium hydroxide. So we're going to be observing the heat of that neutralization event as well. So one thing, a very important thing that is different about what is written in the procedure and what you are going to be doing is the procedure tells you to do this one time and then collect peer data from your peers in the lab. We are not going to be doing that. You are going to do 3 trials of part 1, 3 trials of part 2, 3 trials of part 3. Using your own data, you're going to fill in the data sheets. Okay, so after this is all said and done, that data that you collect and that you generate from these reactions, you're going to use next week as well, because next week we're going to be looking at a reaction that, or we're going to look at a collection of reactions where heat is evolved or absorbed. So make sure that you hold on to that data that you collect for the next week's experiment. Okay, that's pretty much it. Important thing, when handling solid sodium hydroxide, be extremely careful. Second thing, which is really kind of a continuation of that first thing, make sure that you wear gloves when you are doing this procedure so that you have, if any sodium hydroxide gets on your gloves, you can take those gloves off. You do not want a sodium hydroxide burn. You do not want an HCl burn. These are strong acids and strong bases. They produce an exothermic reaction, which causes heat to be evolved, which causes burns. Do not do that. Wear gloves. Be very, very careful when you're using that sodium hydroxide. When handling sodium hydroxide, take the lid off to get some out, put the lid right back on so you don't have to worry about spilling it anywhere or anything like that. All right. Well, I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you later.